What's up, guys? Welcome to this episode of Texas Redfish Hunter TV. Today I'm bringing you a video that I've wanted to bring you for a very long time, and that is about a question that I get a lot. I got it on the live stream, I get it a lot on videos, I get a lot on emails, and that is, how do you retrieve your swim bait lures? So I thought there's no better way to do it than get into a pool, show you some underwater footage of what these lures look like underwater and how I retrieve them depending on the conditions that I am in. So this should be a fun video. Welcome to Texas Redfish Hunter TV, brought to you by the Redtail Republic, wherever your journey takes you, home of Redtail rods and Redtail optics, and Twang. Add a dash to your beer or snack. So here I have an assortment of different style swim baits that I'm going to be throwing today. That way you guys get kind of a broad range and you can compare those to the ones you throw, and you can use the retrieval style that works best for those lures themselves. So let's get a GoPro in the water, let's get set up here, and let's get to showing you guys what these things look like. So the first lure I'm going to be throwing is the Saltwater Assassin Sea Shad Chicken on a Chain. It's one of my favorite swim bait lures to throw. It's a very traditional swim bait. It's got this traditional paddle tail, so this is one that you all can really compare to. I like throwing this one. There's a lot of different styles that are very similar to this one. And the jig head that I'm going to be throwing is a 16th ounce Rockport Rattler jig head 2/0 hook. It's one of the ones that I like throwing. It's one of the main ones that I like throwing, and it works really well with this Sea Shad. So the way that I have to attach this, and this is a tip for all of you guys whenever you're putting a traditional swim bait on a jig head, is bite the tip off of the lures. That makes a nice flat section on the top that really accepts this lure well. I like threading it straight through the middle, go to where it's going to flip perfectly out, up, and then you can just there's a little hook on those Rockport Rattlers, and that thing is ready to swim. Alright, let's see what it looks like. So we're starting off here again with the Bass Assassin Soft Plastic. This is the kind of just a typical paddle tail soft plastic. And the easiest technique to use on a retrieval style is really just a straight retrieve. You wouldn't believe, like, a lot of people think you have to add action to these lures, but these things actually wobble a lot in the water. They're designed to swim like a fish. So casting it out and using, just like I just did, a straight retrieve is very successful in catching fish. I like to put it kind of down at a downward angle when I'm reeling, but you can change the angle when you're reeling based on where in the water column you want this lure to sit. So if I want the lure to sit a little bit higher towards the top, I'll have a raised rod tip. It'll swim higher, closer to the surface. If I wanted it to dive deeper, obviously I'm going to be pointing it down. You can change. That's one of the easiest ways to change where your lure is positioned. But again, no matter which way you're reeling this thing, you can change the direction. A straight retrieve is a very good way of retrieving this lure. So let's look. I'll show you how much this thing actually moves underwater on a straight retrieve. So as you can tell, you really don't have to get fancy with this. It is not a fancy retrieval style that will catch fish. That is a very easy way, and believe me, these things will catch fish on a straight retrieve. Now, if you did want to add a little bit of action to the lure, if you wanted to add a little bit of pop to it, you can also do that as well. And that can be successful in certain situations. If they're not biting a straight retrieve, I'll switch to kind of a popping retrieve. Again, cast it out, and then you can, most of the time I like having it kind of right in front of me, and then I'll pop it once. Reel down, you let it sink again, and then pop it again. And then you can change the speed of this retrieve, but it's pretty much the same thing. You want the lure to kind of dive. So you're popping it up and you're letting the lure dive. So once the lure dives, after you pop it and you let it dive, you reel up your slack and pop it again. That's one retrieval style. Now let's see how that looks underwater. And you can really throw a lot of pops in there if you want. Sometimes they want it really erratic. So another retrieval style that I like doing is kind of just a consistent reel and pop. This kind of makes the lure walk underwater. It kind of makes the lure, you know, dart side to side. So that's another retrieval style that I'll do if the other ones aren't working. So I like switching it up on the water, finding what the fish are targeting, and then doing what the fish want. So sometimes I'll do a popping retrieve. But again, don't be afraid to just reel this thing straight. A lot of the times I'm catching fish on a straight retrieve of this style of bait. Again, that was a saltwater assassin typical paddle tail style bait. Now let's switch over to something like a down south lure, which is a narrow paddle tail, and see what I do for that. So now we're going to be throwing the down south lure. As you can tell, it's got kind of a very narrow paddle tail back end to it, but this gets a lot of action in the water. You can tell already how active it is. And again, I'm going to use pretty similar retrieval styles to the previous one. So the first thing I want to show you is how much action this thing gets on a straight retrieve. That tail really vibrates underwater. On a straight retrieve, that might be all you need, especially with this chartreuse color, to trigger a bite. But a lot of the times what I like doing with this is bouncing it off the bottom and doing that popping retrieval style that I showed you before. I let this one sink a bit, and then I'll just kind of pop it off the bottom. It jumps up and kind of does a little swirl and kind of walks really well. So I like kind of doing one pops, and don't be afraid to do really hard pops either. So let's see that again. Again, let it sink, and then just kind of start popping it in. Now, I'm kind of keeping my rod tip down. That's kind of how I usually retrieve my baits, because I'm usually trying to let it kind of sink a little bit in the water column, because I like using lighter jig heads. But you can do the same thing with a retrieval style, straight up and down, popping it right back to you. So let's see that underwater. So again, that's kind of just with one that has like a thin back end that gets a lot of action in the tail. I like adding my own action to these type of lures more than I do straight retrieval styles. So the last type of bait that I'm going to talk about here is something with a very big and powerful tail, like this Egret baits lure. These tails are very large and they have a lot of drawing power and they give a lot of action. So with these, I really like just doing a straight retrieve. If you pop this, you screw up its action. So straight retrieval on something that has a very big, powerful tail end. So, like I said, this thing gets a lot of drawing power in the water, and you will feel every single wag of that tail with these lures. And it just really, I'm looking at it now, it goes nuts under there. It's a very, very fast vibrating action that you get out of something with this powerful of a paddle tail. So you really want to just do a straight retrieve here. You don't want to pop it. If you pop it, the tail stops moving. And that tail and that vibration on that tail is what is drawing those fish to this lure. I've had a lot of success with these lures, and again, straight retrieval. You do not want to screw up the action of this lure. With this one, I like reeling it fairly quickly, so to get it to the right depth, I like using a little bit heavier jig head, something like 3/8 is what I have on it now. But again, let's see what this thing looks like, and I'll show you exactly what this thing looks like underwater, and you'll see how much this big tail vibrates. If you have a sensitive rod like these Redtails are, you're going to feel every wag of this tail. You're going to know it's working properly when it's down there, which is why having a nice sensitive rod is very, very beneficial when fishing lures like this, or just fishing in general. But again, raise up your rod tip. If you want it to swim higher in the water column, lower it. If you want it to sink a bit, change your speeds on these straight retrieve. Find something that the fish want. Believe me, there's a different retrieval style, and there's a lot of different retrieval styles. These are some of the basic ones that I like using, and I usually just switch it up until I find what those fish want. Once I figure out what they're keying in on, I'll stick with that for the rest of the day. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like. That'd be much appreciated. If you have any further questions on retrieval styles, or you want to see different type of retrieval styles with different lures, let me know in the comment section below, or email me at redhuntertx@gmail.com. If you're new around here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button for continued fishing content, and I'll see you guys next time.